Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson. Here on the Hump Day edition of the Yard. Hope you are well today. One day closer to college football, kids. You know, it's like we had such a great time last week. Let's do it again, right? Home game this weekend, 6:30 kick. SEC Network will handle your TV broadcast if you can't be here. But listen, we need you here. And there's a lot of tickets out there that are being sold well below face value, which is weird to me. You know, we look forward to this all year. We got a Power 5 opponent coming in, and people are like, I'm just going to wait and go to LSU. No, come on. Mississippi State needs you here. And listen, I've had some feedback about that. Some people are like, hey, Steve, I've had this and I've had that. Listen, I get it. Some of you have a reason not to come at times, and it's not to be considered an excuse, right? That said, if you're a ticket holder, I know you know somebody, whether it be in your church or in your neighborhood or somebody you work with, maybe they're not season ticket holders, that would love to bring their kids to a ball game. Let's get your tickets into the hands of people that want to come to games. And listen, I get it. I had a Twitter exchange this morning, and one of our Boneyard listeners, said, hey, Steve, I'm a farmer. It's harvest time. Man, I absolutely get it. And I've said on this show many times before, I come from an ag family. I understand. I love you guys for what you do. I'm not trying to make you feel bad. I don't think you should ever choose between getting the crop in and Mississippi State football. And some of you, and this particular gentleman was able to get it done and get it to the game. I appreciate your dedication not only to Mississippi State football, but to farming. We are an ag school. We're going to have a lot of people involved in farming, and they do a thankless job more times than not to clothe and feed the nation, and don't always get enough credit for that. So thank you for that. But listen, if you're on the fence about coming, because this Arizona team has improved. We're going to break them down in length on Friday. But I tell you, I've watched that UNA-Arizona game twice now. They're a better team than they were last year. I still think they're going to be fortunate to get to a bowl game because of the way their schedule's laid out. It's a tough schedule. It really is. And you know the whole thing last year, the hangover we had, right? Remember, we flew to Arizona, won the ball game. We had so much trouble getting back. It was ridiculous. And then we had to go on the road and play LSU, and we kind of sleptwalked through that deal. Still had the lead in the fourth quarter. Still should have won the game. But all that said, it's a different dynamic, man, when you got to come all the way across the country. And as unique and special as it is for us to have a chance to go play in some venues that we probably never will again in our lifetimes, because chances are if we ever see Arizona again, it's going to be in a bowl game, right? I mean, we're not going to reschedule them, especially if the Power 5 mandate goes away. So this is, maybe the only time that you ever get to see Arizona play at Davis Wade Stadium. And I'll be honest with you, I've had some interactions with them over at Wildcat Authority. That's a 247 Sports website about Arizona. And I tell you, Jason Shear, man, he's an old scout.com guy like me. Man, Jason and I have been around, for years. And Jason does such a great job over there. I had some really good interactions with their fans, and there's a good number of those that are coming to the game. Want to know where to park and where to eat and things like that. And we're always happy to do that. I think that's one of the best things about being with a network is I can go over there and I can ask questions or I can answer questions and things like that. And so, so if you are a 247 Sports subscriber, maybe go over there and look at the content Jason Shear and those guys are putting together for you. And maybe, welcome those Arizona Wildcat fans to Starkville. And, of course, we want to beat them. But at the same time, too, this is a friendly competition. And, they're not a land-grant school like we are. I guess Arizona State's really more like our kissing cousins of the Southwest. But all that said, I've had a good week with the Arizona fans, with rare exception. It's one guy on there. It's kind of been difficult. And everybody else is like, Steve, don't mind him. We don't really claim him. But either way, I admire people's passion for their team. No matter who they cheer for, right? I mean, it's like even if their institution has done something over the years that, bothers me, I don't think a lot of it, there's a lot of that doesn't trickle down to the fans, in my estimation. Maybe you see it differently, but I guess there's one school in particular that I think the fans are very much indicative of the institution just up the road there off Highway 6. You know the place. Real quickly here, too, looking at a couple of other things. If you're going to be in town this weekend, Friday afternoon, I hadn't seen an official start time yet. We're going to have a baseball scrimmage that is free to attend at Dudy Noble Field. We couldn't play at Davis Wade. I guess we could, but so scrimmage Friday and Sunday. The same arrangement next week. So if you're going to be here all weekend, get here early, go to the baseball scrimmage, go to dinner, enjoy the ball game Saturday, and then there's another baseball scrimmage on Sunday. So if you're in town or in the area, you can get more than your fill of Bulldog athletics this weekend and get your first look at the new Diamond Dogs. Also of note, too, they have begun to announce some of the non-conference schedule for Mississippi State men's basketball. And let me get you up to date real quick on this, and then we'll get into some other stuff. There's a couple of topics kind of making their way around Al Gore's internet that I want to chime in on. The first one, we're going to be back in the Barstool Sports Invitational in Chicago, Illinois, against Arizona State. So Wildcats, we got you there. We'll take care of that. Thanks to Brandon Walker, my friend. I'm sure Brandon probably had a say in this. But a cool thing, too, for our Bulldog fans that live in the Midwest, and so many other people, too, may say, you know what, Steve, it's worth going up there taking that trip against a Power 5 opponent. But that's Arizona State on November the 8th. It's a Wednesday. Got to take off work and go to that. November 11th, the following Saturday, we'll have UT Martin here in Stark Vegas. 3 days later on Tuesday will be North Alabama. That should be a dub. And then that following weekend, we will be in the Hall of Fame Classic in Uncasville, Connecticut, back up in the Northeast. We'll get Washington State that Saturday, and then we'll turn around on Sunday and play either Northwestern or URI. So that's what's been released so far on the non-conference slate. I guess it's not true. I got a few other things here. There's a few other things here. My apologies. Will be the ACC-SEC Challenge November 28th against Atlanta, Georgia. We'll have Southern in the hump on December the 3rd. That's Southern U, not Southern Miss. Holiday Hoopsgiving, December 9th in Atlanta, Georgia. That'll be a cool trip, right? I mean, it's just 4 hours over there. And it's 10:30 in the morning, so you can go over Friday night, maybe go take in a show. What is it, the Tabernacle over there? And then knock out the game and get back at a decent hour. Costs you one night. Murray State that Wednesday in Stark Vegas, and North Texas in Tupelo. That's going to be in the Bancorp South Arena. And then Rutgers in Newark, New Jersey in the Gotham Classic. And so, we've got some non-conference dates that are out there. And Paul Jones and our guys are kind of keeping up with that. But, some new announcements. Just want to make sure that you guys are aware of that. It's about time to start thinking about that. I know football season just kicked off, but you know what a great year we had last year in men's and women's basketball. And looking to build upon that this year. And so look forward to that. We want to see you in Humphrey Coliseum. And listen, here's the deal. No matter the sport, I can tell you without reservation, when you go see the Bulldogs play on the road, it is very special to them. We expect a lot of cowbells and football games here. We don't get to use them on the road. But it means a lot to your players, whether it be softball, baseball, volleyball, whatever. When the Bulldogs come to your neck of the woods, please get out and go support them. Please do. It matters to them. I can promise you that. It matters to them. I hear it all the time from our players, about what it means to them. I know on the baseball side of things, our baseball parents are always so incredibly appreciative for anybody to show up wearing an M/S hat. It's the same thing in basketball. We've had some coaches in the past that talk about, we've got some very, very, very loyal men's basketball fans that'll travel all over to go watch us play. So let's turn out, again, and support the Bulldogs on every field of play and court. Speaking of people that support the Bulldogs, and they do it by feeding us so incredibly well, it's Bulldog Burger Company. Next time you're in town or you're in Jackson or in Tupelo, you go by to one of their great locations. University Drive here in Stark Vegas, Gloucester Street in Tupelo, Lake Harbor Drive in the Ridge and Flowwood area. Go by, have the spring rolls as your appetizer, make you and everybody around you better looking. I went and ate the Sloppy Joe sliders, I guess it was Sunday night before the LSU game. And my son Ian is now a server, and I've already started getting some rave reviews from some of you. So really, really appreciate the fact that he's able to work for such a class organization. And here's the thing, too, because I have an insider's view, right? Because I got a man on the inside, I can tell you they do things right at Bulldog Burger Company. It's not a secret that they're successful. They just do things the right way. They take care of their employees. They value their customers. And there's so many businesses today, and I'm going to tell you this. I'm not going to mention the name of the business because I want to embarrass them. There was a business in town that I went through a drive-through a year ago, a national chain, and I was treated poorly. And the people even use profanity. Well, it's been like a year or more, and sometimes I'll eat at this place on the road when I'm traveling. But I went, that same franchise, same national chain. But I went through there yesterday, and I said, oh, yeah, I'm kind of craving this. I'll give it another shot. Same thing, man. Same thing. Bad service. Everybody's just joking around. It's just not any good, you know. And, there's a reason people don't frequent that business. And the sad thing about that is probably a Bulldog ownership group there that's paid somebody to manage that location and probably wondering why things aren't better. Well, I'll tell you why. You got a manager problem. That's not the case at Bulldog Burger Company. It's well managed. It's a great experience when you go. I've never had a negative experience there. I've been going for years. I was going there long before they were sponsoring the show. So go by, get that great restaurant quality hamburger, get that BLT salad. I like it grilled. You may want it fried. Either way, you're going to get more than you pay for at Bulldog Burger Company, the place where people go to meet, M-E-A-T. All right. Now, some people are going to whine about this first segment of the show, and that's okay. And it's not going to be Mississippi State people that whine. I mean, there may be a few. There may be a few Steve Robertson haters that listen to the show. You know, it kind of reminds me of not that I'm a shock jock, but like the whole thing when they had the Arbitron survey on private parts about Howard Stern. It's like, what's the number one reason people listen? I want to hear what he's going to say next. And then people that hate him, they listen to him. Why? Because I want to hear what he's going to say next. There are some people who are going to listen to the show just to hear what I'm going to say next. And maybe they don't even like me. That's okay. But thanks for listening. But I want to talk about this big scoop. Stingray. Remember Stingray? A lot of people, really kind of cruel to old Stingray over the years. I mean, he's always been nice to me. And, he was all the Pom Pom Bomb show, and they kind of exploited the kid and, kind of made fun of him at his own expense. And I don't think he realized it. And then he went on Tosh.0. They kind of did the same thing. They were kind of making fun of him. I don't like that sort of stuff. You know what I mean? It's like if I do or say something stupid, you want to roast me for that? Okay, fine. In case you haven't noticed, I'm not a guy that really cares about what people think about my appearance. But there are other people out there that do, and they're very sensitive about that. And I don't support that at all. You don't hear me making fat jokes. And I tell you this, my buddy Brian Haydad has dropped a lot of LBs, and I pulled him aside a couple days ago. And I said, Brian, listen, I want to tell you, man, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. You're taking charge here. I want you to be here for your wife and for your girls. I love Brian. And I wouldn't have said that 15 years ago. But Brian's my friend, right? And there have been some times in the past that maybe somebody will make a little comment about his weight in the media room. And I'm like, hey, no, we're not doing that. No, we're not doing that. Now, Brian can give as well as he can take, right? But there are a lot of people out there that aren't as beautiful as me and you, right? And so I think that's the most obscene, low-hanging fruit. It's like it basically is a reflection of your intelligence when you can't beat somebody in the debate, so you resort to being critical of their personal appearance. Does that make sense? Right? Because here's the thing, too. None of us are responsible for being beautiful. Of course, we're all, we have responsibility to take care of ourselves. But, I remember when that whole Sybil Shepherd ad came out years ago, because I'm from the 1900s and people watched commercials on TV. And she said, people tell me I'm beautiful. And I said, thank you, but thank my mom and dad. We have no say in that. And I said, there are a lot of people that I want to take pride in who I am or what I am. That's the thing I've learned about life is you can't be whatever you want to be. No matter what your teachers tell you or your parents, you cannot be whatever you want to be. Everybody has limitations, but you can be whoever you want to be. That's the truth. You can be a good person. And we've all been there before. You got big weekend plans. For some reason, it just didn't work out. Maybe life gets in the way. Maybe you want to head down to the casino. Maybe take some of their money. I like to do that. Well, my bookie's new and improved online casino is here to change the game for you. Dive into truly realistic casino experiences featuring the latest in slots, progressive jackpots, and live dealer action, all from the comfort of your own home. Take advantage of weekly blackjack tournaments and a brand new collection of high-end games for a chance at real cash rewards. The MyBookie Casino provides a Las Vegas experience when the action's in your hands. And the best part is you don't even have to wear pants. How cool is that? Your adventure at the MyBookie Casino begins today with a generous sign-up bonus using promo code Boneyard. That's promo code Boneyard to secure yourself a sweet deposit bonus. And that's not all. Because their revamped loyalty program ensures that you'll be showered with rewards, including free spins, cashback offers, and a host of exclusive VIP perks, the more you play, the more you'll win. Play anytime, anywhere with the MyBookie Casino. Again, that's promo code Boneyard. Hey, Bulldog fans, you hosting a big shindig soon, maybe a horror movie marathon, maybe an impromptu game night with friends. You want to get cozy with friends and family and maybe even serve up some pumpkin beers? Yeah, great. Well, don't do it without Drizzly, the go-to app for drink delivery. With Drizzly, you can find all the right drinks for whatever you're planning and get them delivered directly to your door. Boom, hosting handled. Now, before you get back to folding napkins and carving pumpkins, download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com/hosting/handled today. Again, that's drizzly.com, DRZLY.com/hosting-handled today. Must be 21 plus and not available in all locations. Hey, Bulldog fans, do you enjoy live entertainment like I do? I'm always going to rock shows or going to ball games. I'm always going somewhere that requires a ticket. So when you're looking for tickets to your next game, concert, or show, make shopping for tickets a little bit easier with TickPick, the original no-fee ticket marketplace that brings you the best prices for all the events you love. And now, TickPick is partnering with Zip, so you can shop now and pay later. How cool is that? Zip allows you to shop at TickPick and split your payment into easy monthly installments. Visit TickPick.com and use promo code ZIP20 for $20 off your first purchase of $199 or more with Zip. Zip can only be used for U.S. purchases, and Zip may charge a fee at checkout. Certain merchant products, goods, and service restrictions may apply. See Zip's terms of service at www.zip.co/US. Loans to the Zip app are originated by WebBank, except for Zip-originated loans in Colorado, Nevada, Massachusetts, and Maryland. Shop for all your tickets at TickPick.com and check out with Zip to split your payments into easy installments. Zip makes it easier than ever before to get your tickets now and pay for them later at TickPick.com. Check out with Zip at TickPick.com. I'm a big proponent of that. But anyway, off the soapbox. Stingray, has a radio show out of Tuscaloosa, and I'm on there from time to time on with Tide 105.9 or whatever it is. But anyway, they have me on as a guest sometimes. They had Dan Mullen on, and Mullen revealed on the show that he's going to be doing color commentating for the Battle for the Golden Egg this year on Thanksgiving. And these, oh my gosh, Ole Miss people lost their minds. I think, my gosh, why are you so delicate? We've had Deuce McAllister call our games before, and to be honest with you, I thought Deuce did a pretty good job. Especially for an Ole Miss guy. I don't mean that in a negative way. This is a guy that chose the other school, played hard against us for 4 years, and obviously there's going to be an inherent bias. But when Deuce is done color commentating for us, I thought, hey, pretty good. Right? I don't think we're quite that sensitive. And listen, I don't like the intermingling of the Ole Miss Mississippi State experience a lot of times. Like, I really don't. Like, Richard Cross, another example. Richard says some things on their show. I don't listen, but sometimes people will put stuff on the message board. He says some things I don't agree with. But when he has commentated our men's and women's basketball games, I thought he's done pretty well. There were a couple times, of course, we may win a game. I think he's expecting us to lose, and he kind of falls quiet, and that's okay too. But I think by and large, he's done a pretty good job. Again, he and I are not ever going to see everything the same way. But I think like when we had our women's basketball program rolling a couple years ago, And Richard would do the color or the play-by-play. I thought he did good. I couldn't tell he was an Ole Miss guy. And that in and itself is an accomplishment, right? But so now all of a sudden Dan is kind of connected to this and like, oh, well, we got to boycott. Fine, I don't care if you watch a game. Don't watch it. And somebody says, well, there's got to be an alternate feed. This is so disrespectful. Well, ESPN's bought the broadcast rights to that game, so I think you're probably in trouble unless you just want to sync up your radio feed and listen to David Kellum, which is certainly, you're right, you got technology to do it. Matter of fact, there are like apps out there that you can download that allow you to sync up your radio broadcast with a TV broadcast. For years and years and years, I would rather have listened to Jack Crystal than anybody, right? But it's so funny, too. They're like, oh, well, when Dan Mullen was here, he ratcheted up the rivalry to a point that it was toxic. And so what you're really telling me is you don't know anything about the rivalry. That's what you're telling me. And it also shows how self-serving and sensitive you are. So I'm going to just kind of point a few things out here. You guys may recall this. If you've read Stark Villains, and I hope you have. If you haven't, there are still some limited quantities available. Matter of fact, I was at Book Martin Cafe yesterday, downtown Starkville, and they've got about a case left. And once that's gone, that's it. There's a few left in the warehouse from the publisher, but that's it. But Stark Villains, 1905, we played Ole Miss in Jackson for the very first time. And maybe you knew that. And legend has it that every Mississippi State student went to the game. We were Mississippi A&M back then. We were the Aggies, and they boarded a train and went down there. And it's detailed in the book. Some of those kids had never been on a train before, and they stuck their head out the window and they lost their caps. They were surprised. They didn't know anything. They were just small town country kids doing something big for the first time. Many of them had never even been to Jackson, Mississippi before. How it was when I was a kid growing up, poor in South Mississippi, anything beyond Jackson was like a foreign country, And so these kids are going to Jackson for the first time, and we didn't have stands back then. And we're playing at the fairgrounds. And so our fans are on the same side of the field as our team. Like they're on the sidelines, slapping backs and talking trash. And one time they had to stop the game because we were beating Ole Miss. And Ole Miss's football coach, I believe, resigned like 6 weeks before the season. They ended up only playing 2 games that year against us, and UT Chattanooga didn't score any one of them. And so as the game's going on, our fans are like on the field talking trash, and there's all kind of craziness. They stop the game, clear the field. After the game is over, the Aggie cadets conducted a full military funeral parade down Capitol Street in honor of the death of the Ole Miss athletic spirit. Yeah, that's true. Flash forward to 1926, we had beaten Ole Miss several years in a row, and they finally get a win, and they decide to tear down our goalpost, and a riot breaks out. And not only did they try to tear down the goalpost, they tried to take them with them, and our students would not allow that to happen. And the way the Reflector talked about it, it just seemed such incredibly disrespect. Go back, I guess, to 97 when Wes Shivers was a recruit deciding between Mississippi State and Ole Miss out of Hines Community College. Big 6'7" guy. Wes also appeared in one of my books, Alpha Dogs. Wes also was on The Ultimate Fighter. But then, Wes is hit in the head by a helmet by an Ole Miss player. Very prominent player. Needless to say, he went to Mississippi State instead of Ole Miss. But it's so funny. It's only like they only label it toxic when we win, and of course they had their carpetbagger shill, Hugh Kellenberger, kind of write that column about the rivalry is just too toxic. Well, why is it never toxic when they win? It's only when we win that it's a problem. You think Dan Mullen ratcheted it up? What do you think about the Billy Brewer years, right? When you would take official visitors to strip clubs in Memphis. I guess it's good work if you could get it. But wonder what that did for the rivalry. What about toward the end of the Jackie Sherrill era when there were private investigators trying to drum up dirt on Sherrill because all he'd done is win, right? And they're following our coaches around, digging through our coaches' trash, trying to find anything they could to try to find NCAA investigations. Do you think that helped the feelings of the rivalry? I suspect probably not. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think so. Do you think it helped the rivalry? When we had Ole Miss players, signees that were going to take the ACT at Wayne County High School with a young lady that was mentioned prominently and accused of malfeasance by the NCAA as it came to the administration of that test. Do you think that helped the rivalry? Do you think it helped when we had out-of-state players being housed and provided transportation to attend the Ed Center, a place that was set up for Mississippi students? Do you think that helped things? Do you think that helped our feelings a little bit? I'm going to assure you that it did not. Do you think it helped the rivalry when they absolutely criticized anybody who questioned Hugh Freeze? Anybody. And this isn't even really about Freeze. It's about their insulation of him and how they treated all of us. God forbid anybody ever say anything, about St. Hugh. And how dare you say that? You're anti-Christian. You're this, you're that, you're this, And so they beat everybody down, and then they were wrong. Do you think that helped things? You're going to sit here and try to insult our intelligence? Not to mention, Ross Bjork and those guys. I mean, listen, I understand they get their marching orders, but the whole thing about, we can't wait to tell our story, and what a story it was. Yeah, it's true. And then, of course, you had the in-state media that were complicit in the cover-up, and I had a discussion with an editor-in-chief with a prominent newspaper within the Magnolia State that was kind of sick and tired of getting browbeat by my followers on Twitter. And he's like, hey, what's the deal here? And I said, well, I'll tell you what, you guys are completely incompetent or you're complicit in the cover-up. And I'm comfortable with whatever hat you want to wear. But this information was out there for everybody. It's true. I even offered to give it to him. I remember with Tupelo Daily Journal, I remember John Pitts, who I think is a great guy. Pitts is like, on Twitter, he engages me. He's like, well, what would you have us do? I gave him 10 things to do. I said, here's what I would do. Matter of fact, I said, we can discuss it over lunch. I'll leave right now. I'm not going to excuse any of that lack of coverage. But the reality of it is that, Ole Miss had some advertisers that, hey, newspapers a dying industry. And like, hey, you go after this thing here. We'll just pull our advertising. I don't think they would have. But they try to bully people around. What did that do? You try to shape the narrative and you push people off their journalistic responsibility. You hold them hostage. Wonder what that did for the rivalry. Not to mention the Clarion Ledger, for all intents and purposes throughout my lifetime, has just basically been a rag for Ole Miss. It's true, all the way back to the Hedeman family. It's true. You can say what you want. It's absolutely true. When Jackie Sherrill and was under an NCAA investigation, which he was exonerated in, I'll also point out to you, the Clarion Ledger and Rusty Hampton and those guys, they couldn't write a practice report without mentioning that we were under NCAA investigation. It's true. Not to mention, not to make the story about me, but do you think it was toxic when I had to talk to the FBI because Ole Miss fans were making death threats to me on social media and on message boards? You think that helped the rivalry a little bit? Do you think it slowed me down when you tried to get my wife fired at the hospital? Was that not toxic? Was it toxic when I had people attacking my daughters, my high school age daughters, on social media? Grown men? Was that not toxic? I mean, I'm asking, because apparently I'm an idiot. But I tell you this, and you can take this to the bank. You come after my wife or my children, it's no longer about Mississippi State and Ole Miss. It's about me and you. And I'm going to win that one. You better believe that. I've proven that. And there are a lot of your friends that used to be your social media friends that have all come up missing. That's not a coincidence. It's not. You say what you want to about me. You come after my wife, my kids, I'm going to get you. I'm just telling you right now. Then you say, well, Steve's making all these threats on the podcast. No, I'm not. I don't make threats. I make promises. It's one thing to be on opposite ends of this thing of a football game. Okay, that's fine. It's another thing when you drag somebody else's family into it. You can hate me all you want. My wife, my boys, my girls never did anything to any of you people. But you couldn't get to me, so you wanted to go to them. That's a definition of being toxic. That you're upset about losing a recruit. You're upset about your false narrative being exposed in the light of day. You're upset because the truth was known. You're upset because Steve Robertson pulled Colonel Reb's pants down in front of the world and everybody could see that things weren't as grand as you all made them out to be. And because you couldn't get to me, you went after my family? But Dan Mullen is toxic? You kidding me? Dan is toxic? Because Mullen had the gall to say, our domination of the school up north, that's toxic? You kidding me? Where do we get off here? Those are the things that I just begin to think about, within the rivalry itself. Guys, this rivalry has been toxic from the very beginning. In fact, the very first chapter of Stark-Billings is entitled Contentious from the Beginning. The Ole Miss educated legislature at the time fought against the very creation of Mississippi State. It's true. At that point, Ole Miss, of course, the first institute of higher learning in the state of Mississippi, so everybody that couldn't litigate law went to work in the legislature, right? And so we had no shot. We had no Mississippi State educated people then. And we had to fight and scratch and claw against the landed gentry of this state, the bourgeoisie of Mississippi, to even have a school to send our kids to get educated. They fought against the very establishment of your university from the beginning. Forget the football stuff. Forget baseball. Forget social media. They didn't even want you to exist. And you remember the Morrill Land Grant? Maybe you learned about that in school, the Morrill Land Grant, part of post-Civil War Reconstruction. Federal government set aside funds to establish land grant institutions to allow for, to teach farmers' kids how to farm more efficiently, right? Which is the betterment of our country. Kind of going back to our open segment, right? And so the Morrill Land Grant money initially went to Ole Miss because they were the institution in Mississippi. And then all of a sudden the farmers' kids show up at Ole Miss to learn and to be better farmers and to learn how to work with their hands and to advance this state. And they were treated like second-class citizens. There were letters that were written. We didn't want our kids going to school with those kids. Your kids, your grandfathers, your great-grandfathers. Didn't even want them going to school with their kids. Not because of who they were, because of what they were. And so when I hear all this talk about, things are so toxic and so bad, guys, before there was even a university, there was this division within the state of Mississippi between different pockets of the population. There was always this, we're not snobs, we're just better than you. Now you just print t-shirts. It was always like that. And so this kind of predates any talk of football. It's been passed down from generation to generation. People are like, well, I've got some Ole Miss friends too. Cool, fine. That's fine, absolutely fine. Matter of fact, my wife comes from an Ole Miss family. I guess she's the black sheep. I'm happy to have her, I can tell you that. Matter of fact, her uncle played offensive line at Ole Miss. And that's really how they became Ole Miss people, right? I mean, they just grew up. They were just good, South Mississippi folks. He had an opportunity to go play at Ole Miss, and he went. And to this day, he is a staunch Ole Miss rebel. And, of course, it strained the relationship a little bit. It did, but it's so funny. I go to a family reunion, and, there's my wife's father and her uncles all wearing their Ole Miss hats, want to get a picture made with me. They thought it was funny. It is funny. That's not toxic. It's not. And so I get sick and tired of hearing about all this stuff about, oh, it's worse than it's ever been in my lifetime. You're an idiot. You're an absolute, unadulterated idiot with no sense of history, if that's what you believe. Dan Mullen can't call a ball game. And it's not like it's a special event. He's going to be doing it every Thursday night. It just so happens the battle for the Golden Egg is on Thanksgiving this year, which is a Thursday. But let's make it about you. Oh, well, we need to do this. Get over yourself. Get over yourself. It's so ridiculous to me. It's like the thing that I go back to, and we're going to move on from this because I got to get the rest of the show. The bottom line is this, is that there are a lot of people in this state that claim allegiance to the Ole Miss family, whether they attended school or not, that their attitude is this. When they're done talking, they want us to shut up too. And I'm just not going to do that. I'm not going to do it. I didn't raise my kids to be that way. It's not an Ole Miss anti-rhetoric deal, but we're going to stand up for what we believe. And I think I taught my children a valuable lesson. When I had the machine come after me, right? You'll never understand, ever, how exhilarating it was to be vindicated in the end. You'll never understand that. And I suspect I'll never experience anything like that again the rest of my life. Probably never have the evidence of the biggest scandal in the history of Mississippi college athletics. And to be honest with you, I hope I never do. I hope none of us within this state ever go through anything like that ever again. But you better believe this. If I get evidence of it again, I'm going to report it. And the thing about it is I'm bigger and stronger and really don't care as much as I did before. I won't pull nearly as many punches the next go around, right? I am not the guy that's going to be intimidated. I'm not going to be bullied. And I remember that day when I went before the State Ethics Commission, and I get emotional thinking about this, man. Because my dad, made us all Bulldogs, and I had to go all the way to Jackson and sit there in that Ethics Commission hearing. And I remember before I was so nervous, I was about to vomit the whole way down there because I was like, I'm really out of my lane here. This is not me. Have I gone too far? And the truth of the matter is I was tired of being a coward about all this stuff. And I was so tired every single time I'd get so frustrated when somebody within the Mississippi State family would have credible information. It's like, well, I don't want to do anything with this because I don't want to deal with the blowback. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to be that guy. I'm not going to be the guy to look back one day in my life and say, you know what? I had this. I didn't do anything with it. I didn't write the big story. I didn't chase the big story. I have a platform. Other people have a furniture store or something, And they're like, you know what, Steve? I got to sell furniture to everybody. I can't be caught up in the middle of all this. I got a car dealership. I got a restaurant. I want to be able to serve to everybody. I get it. I understand it. My situation's much different. I got a platform that only appeals to Mississippi State people, right? So in many respects, I was a perfect guy for that. But I remember when I got out and I passed the federal building in downtown Jackson. My dad worked there when he worked for Farmers Home Administration, which became Rural Development. And all of a sudden, I could just feel that my dad was with me. So I go on that Ethics Commission hearing, and we win. And it wasn't just me. It was my name on the complaint, but we won. I just happened to be your representative. We won. Then we get appealed to the Hinds County Chancery Court. We actually have an Ole Miss judge there. And to his credit, I wish I remembered his name, he went and abided by the law. And it's a thing that I learned as I went through and navigated through this process, is that the people in charge of enforcing the law in Mississippi put aside their college football allegiances and did what was right, and were criticized by some within the Ole Miss community for simply following the law. And it went all the way to the state Supreme Court. And the truth of the matter is, guys, we would have gone all the way to the United States Supreme Court if that's what it took. I was like, well, we've come this far. We're not going to back away from this. I had people from around the country, Bulldog fans, said, hey, Steve, whatever your legal expenses are, we'll pay them, right? I had people all over the country who was like, you know what, we believe in what you're doing. Thankfully, I didn't have to take any money from anybody. And we won again. And we changed the way the law in Mississippi is interpreted as it relates to how universities that are funded by state tax dollars can withhold and hide information from public purview. I think it's a pretty big deal. It is. And of course, that led to so much. So you don't want to like me? That's cool. I'll still find a way to go to sleep every night. That's 100% fine with me. But I tell you this, there's not a Mississippi State fan in this world, whether they like me personally or not, will ever look back at that and say, you know what, Steve did the wrong thing. I did the right thing, despite the fact that so many people were in my face about it. I even had some of my own people in the media, my own friends and peers said, Steve, leave this alone. And I said, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to let it go. Because that's what's happened over and over and over again. It gets let go. It gets covered up. It gets hidden. It gets forgotten. I have had people within the Mississippi State Administration tell me, Steve, this is probably not a good thing. And I said, here's the thing. If you're worried about them coming back and retaliating because you've done something you shouldn't do, that's a you problem, not a me problem. And people said, you know what, Steve's got this kamikaze approach. But you know what? Somebody had to do it. And I'm glad it was me. But we paid a heavy price for it, for sure. And really my family, more so than me. And when your family hurts, that's the thing that makes you hurt, right? And you look up one day, and I remember the day that I woke up and I wrote about this in Flim Flam. I'd slept in. I'd been up really late the night before, working and watching some TV. And my wife had worked at the hospital that night. And so I had no reason to go to bed, right? And I wake up in the morning and the phone's going off, and it's just one text after another. People are calling left and right, and there's these death threats out there. And it feels kind of surreal when that happens. You think, there's nothing to this, And I remember my lawyer at the time calling me and said, you need to go to the sheriff's department right now and go do this. And I'm like, it's not a big deal. He said, Steve, this is a big deal. You need to go report this. At least make a report. Go do it. And then I had to get up. When my wife gets up later, after I went and made the report and I saw how seriously the sheriff's department was taking it, and I had to tell her. And the guy told me, he goes, you need to tell your family. You need to make sure they're aware of these threats. They made some very specific threats. And you got to go in there and tell your wife. And then you got to hear her cry and watch her cry. And say, I don't want anything to happen to you. Nothing's going to happen to me. These are just keyboard cowboys. Nothing's going to happen to me. But you truly never know. You truly never know. Because all it takes is one crazy person to do something stupid, trying to get some credibility or whatever. You never know what somebody else is dealing with in their life. Maybe their life is not the way they want it to be, and it's just their way of getting some kind of esteem. So don't ever, ever, ever tell me about this rivalry being toxic. All right, time for today's Top 10 list. As always, brought to you by closewithblair.com. That's C-L-O-S-E with Blair, B-L-A-I-R.com. Blair tells me yesterday, got to clear to close on another Boneyard loan. How about that, man? It's not just a sponsorship, man. It's like people are doing some things to make their lives better, right? Whether it be getting a new home, refinancing the current home, whatever. Listen, it's a challenging economy out there right now, guys. It is. Blair Chandler's been doing this 22 years, man. He won't steer you wrong. I wouldn't do business with somebody that I thought wouldn't treat you right. Blair Chandler is my friend. I don't have friendships with people that don't act in an ethical way. I don't. I may have some acquaintances. I know some people that I know, but I wouldn't trust my mortgage to them, right? You could trust your mortgage to almost anybody, but just better off being with somebody that knows how to get things done. That's Blair Chandler. Visit him at closewithblair.com. You know what you could do? Just between us kids here. Let me give you his personal cell number. Not a call center, not a receptionist, not his personal assistant. I'm going to give you Blair Chandler's phone number. 601-500-2344. 601-500-2344. Maybe one of the most important calls you make. When you get to be an adult, sometimes you need help making adult decisions. You need somebody that's been there and done it and seen it all. He works at Fairway Mortgage, a very reputable lender. Top 1% close ratio in the country back-to-back-to-back years. Man, I could not endorse Blair Chandler more than I already do. I want you to have some peace of mind at night. I want you to get the new home, get the second home, whatever you need to do. Blair Chandler is the guy that can help you navigate through the labyrinth that often comes along with mortgage loan origination. Again, that's Blair Chandler, 601-500-2344. Okay, kids. We did Music of Arizona when we played them last year. And I went back and pulled the list up, and I said, you know what? I really like that theme as we get into seasons, and it was a good list. It was. I'm not going to repeat it, but, then we had some Michelle Branch stuff. I love Michelle Branch. I do. Great music from her. Because if you want to, I can save you. I can. But I thought, let's do top 10 songs about Arizona. I know we've got some Arizona listeners today, too. Some people over on the Arizona, on the Wildcat website of ours. It said, hey, I'm going to listen to the podcast. I told them we'll touch on Arizona a little bit today. We'll really get into it after Friday. But here are top 10 songs about the state of Arizona. A very, very eclectic list here, guys. We got some punk. We got some rap. We got some alternative rock. We got some country. We got some classic rock. A little bit of everything. And I'll tell you, my time in Arizona last year was great. And I've been through Arizona a couple times. And it's been good. It has been. And, I spent a lot of time in New Mexico. I'm not a fan. Arizona's much different. And it's a long way from Albuquerque to Tucson, just so you know. Long way. Long way. But top 10 songs about Arizona. A band that didn't make the list, because I don't know of any songs of theirs that are about the state of Arizona. I'm sure there are some. But my favorite song from Tucson, Arizona's own, the Super Suckers. You know where I'm going with this? Do you? Do you think you know? I don't think you do. I don't think you do. I'm not going to give you the name of the song. I'm just going to I'm not going to sing it. I know you want me to. I'm not going to. But the Super Suckers had a great track called Pretty Something Up. And, it's about a guy and he's, girls running around on him, He says, I used to be strong. I used to be tough. She used to be pretty. Now she's pretty, you know what. Oh, it's great. I got turned on to that song by Danny, the bass player from Faster Pussycat. Love Danny to death. And there are times when Danny will take the mic and he'll sing his ode to the Super Suckers. Again, a great band from from Tucson, Arizona. All right, number 10, we're going to stick with punk a little bit here. We're going to get started with a band that's not from Tucson. It's a punk band, and I know Coy Welburn's going to probably email me and say, Steve, yeah, I'm glad you included them, but here's like 50 songs that are better. But it's Authority Zero's Mesa Town. Because there's, Mesa, right? Number 9, The Kings of Leon. And I've had some requests to do a top 10 of The Kings of Leon. I'll be honest with you, I'm not as familiar with that catalog as I need to be to comfortably do a top 10. Of course, I know Use Somebody would be number 1, and probably Sex on Fire is number 2. But this great track, Arizona. I love the instrumentation on this. Great track, great vocal. I think you'll like everything about it. Number 8, a band that's kind of an acquired taste. If you're looking for vocal superiority, you're not going to find it with this band, Clutch. But man, what a cool band, what a cool vibe. They had a great track called The King of Arizona. That's your number 8 song today on Top 10. Number 7, we're going back to Tucson, and we're going to take a train to get there. And our buddy Bruce Springsteen is going to be the engineer to make sure we get there. That's right, Tucson Train from Bruce Springsteen came out, I guess it was the Western Skies album, Western Stars album, here a few years ago. Really a kind of a return to form in many respects for Bruce. And, he has an incredible fan base. I know when we did a top 10 Bruce Springsteen list, the reaction to that was very split. A lot of people said, Steve, you did a great job, but you missed this deep track or whatever. Other people are like, Steve, you completely blew it. You shouldn't have used any of the singles. The better album, the better songs are deeper in the album. So I get it. But Bruce Springsteen, number 7, Tucson Train. Number 6, guys, it's the great country balladeer that penned my first favorite song. It's a young man. It's Glenn Campbell. And if you know the Glenn Campbell catalog, you know where I'm going. It's By the Time I Get to Phoenix. It's a great track. It is. Glenn Campbell, man, I don't know that Glenn gets enough credit, to be honest with you. Kind of a man's man. Number 5, another song with a similar title. And Arizona fans, please don't think I'm being critical of you, because in our state, we've made some mistakes too, for sure. But there was a time that the state of Arizona did not celebrate the Martin Luther King holiday, and they made a big deal about it, and they repealed it, I guess. They were like the only state in the union that weren't celebrating the MLK holiday. And the great American poet laureate Chuck D penned the song By the Time I Get to Arizona. It's basically a protest song, about all that. And of course, the good people of Arizona reversed the decision. The people said no. The people spoke, and power to the people of Arizona said no. We're not participating in this. We're going to be like everybody else in the union, and we're going to celebrate Martin Luther King Day. So no matter your feelings about that, I think it was an important song when it happened, because it seemed like it happened like overnight. Like once it was out there, it's like Chuck D and Flavor Flav went into the studio almost immediately and released this new song. It was pretty incredible how it all came together. Number 4, I mentioned my friends in Faster Pussycat early on the show. One of my favorite songs, probably one of the most different songs in their catalog. And I'm a Faster Pussycat guy. Love them. In my estimation, they don't have a bad song. Probably one of my least favorite ones is probably Please Dear. I know I'm going to get hate mail for that. But off that great album, Wake Me When It's Over, which to me is the best Faster Pussycat album. It's one that I can listen to in its entirety. Tucked away on the backside of that album, it's the Arizona Indian Doll. Absolutely love that thing, man. The piano, Tammy does a great job on it. It is unlike anything else that Faster Pussycat's ever done. And happy to get that on the list today. Matter of fact, it was kind of one of the driving forces to this list, because I wanted you guys, if you don't know the song, you should know the song. Because she walked me to the teepee and she kissed me goodnight. Love it. All right, number 3, and this is another hidden gem in a classic American rock band. It's Aerosmith, and this came from one of their greatest hits compilation albums. It's a great track that I don't know that got the notoriety it deserved, and it's about a touristy town, and of course northern Arizona, right there in Sedona. It's the Sedona Sunrise from Aerosmith. Sedona Sunrise, the title of the song. I really, really like this song. I don't understand why it wasn't a bigger hit. I think a lot of it's because the music industry is so watered down these days. It's tough to kind of hear new stuff from your favorite artist unless you're specifically looking for it. Like when one of my favorite bands releases something or puts something out there, I just go ahead and pre-buy it or go ahead and set it for download when it's released, which is what I've done with the Sleep Theory EP out of Memphis. But nevertheless, the Aerosmith song, Sedona Sunrise, number 3. Number 2, I know you country music guys are thinking, you know what, there's no way this song doesn't make the list, and you're absolutely right about this. It's George Strait, Oceanfront Property in Arizona. There is none. But it's an amazing song from one of America's great performers. A guy that's true to country. You'll never hear George Strait use the phrase, girl. He won't do that. He's not going to get up on stage in bedazzled jeans and a tank top. He's not going to do that. The guy's a true balladeer, a true country troubadour. Happy to celebrate the music of George Strait on the show. You look at me sometimes, you think there's no way Steve likes George Strait. I don't ride around listening to George Strait very often. I have a tremendous amount of respect for George Strait. But number 1, and some of you are thinking, well, what could it be? What could it be? Well, it's not technically about Arizona, but they mention Arizona in the lyrics, and it is one of the greatest songs in American rock history. It's the Pet Shop Boys. No, it's not the Pet Shop Boys. It's the Eagles. would take it easy. And I am happy to say that on one of my trips to California, I stopped in Winslow, Arizona, and had my picture taken in front of that flatbed Ford. Yeah, that's right. Because I'm that dude. I'm a nerd. I'm a music nerd. And plus, I wanted to do it just so I could say I did it. An amazing song written by the great, incomparable Glenn Frey. So take it easy. And that's something we should all probably learn to live with, right? Even me, when I think about all these Ole Miss trolls on Twitter. The mute button is one of God's greatest gifts to every one of us. But take it easy. An amazing track from an amazing band. And I think you could make the argument, we talk about this sometimes like within the media. These young guys don't really have as much to say, but it's usually me and Dave Murray and a few others. Hey, Dad'll pipe up, Robbie. The argument always boils down to who is America's greatest rock band. There's a lot of people, you could say, well, there's this band and that band. At the end of the day, the discussion always boils down to Aerosmith or the Eagles. And I don't know that you can go wrong either way. I like Aerosmith a little bit more because it's a little rockier, right? It's a little more of an edge to it. And, of course, things changed a lot with the Eagles when Joe Walsh joined the band. It's true. But it's good to get them both on this list. And, again, it's crazy. Only on the Boneyard are you going to get Public Enemy, Authority Zero, Aerosmith, George Strait, and the Eagles all in one list. Yeah. You didn't think Clutch and Bruce Springsteen were ever going to be mentioned together in the same sentence, but here we are. So to the people of Arizona, we look forward to you coming and being our guest this week. And, again, we'll have a top 10 list again on Friday. And so probably that will be the wife doing Nirvana because I'm not a fan. And I don't know why did I take that so personally. I just don't like it. I don't like it. And our friend Jennifer Barnett, who listens to the show, shared on Facebook yesterday that we talked about Mother Love Bone and Andrew Wood and Malfunction and those guys some time ago. Of course, Andrew Wood, born in Columbus, Mississippi. Yeah, little did you know that he would be kind of the godfather of grunge music. But there is a documentary out there called Malfunction, the story of Andrew Wood. It's produced by Stone Gossard of Pearl Jam, who was a member of Mother Love Bone. I'm going to be watching that. I'm going to save it for Friday. And so had Andrew Wood lived, I'm kind of curious to see what the direction music would have taken in the Pacific Northwest. Because they were so far ahead of the game. Them and the Melvins, in many respects, were really ahead of the game. But all that said, Dana may do the top 10 to my list on Friday. And when I first mentioned it on the show, my inbox lights up. They're like, oh, finally. I'm just trying to find like a great compromise that I can broker, that I can give to people what they want without kind of getting my hands dirty, right? Because I know you guys want a Nirvana list. I will tell you this, Heart-Shaped Box is going to be there somewhere near the top. I don't like Nirvana, but of the songs, that's the one I probably like the most. And you say, but Steve, what about Smells Like Teen Spirit? It's an iconic song. It's just, I don't know, maybe it's because I was just so incredibly deep into the 80s metal scene. And it's funny looking back, calling all that stuff metal, because most of it wasn't hard. Like, we considered Poison metal back then. Cinderella was metal back then. Not really a big Poison fan either. But it's amazing. That's the most listened to top 10 list we've ever had. So, obviously, maybe I missed the boat. And that's going to be the case with Nirvana, too. I'm sure it'll be a very, very well-read and listened to list. And my wife will claim some sense of superiority because her list did better than some of mine. To be honest with you, I would rather give you a top 10 list of obscure 80s metal songs, maybe you don't know, than I would that kind of stuff. That's just me. But I'm going to give you what you want, and so hopefully we can get a Nirvana list up for you Friday. So just, if we don't, we'll do it Monday because she's going to be here through the weekend. So we'll get you taken care of, and I'm really kind of ready to remove that as a topic of conversation. But listen, follow Roy, my buddy Roy Samonte. I had a chance to see him and his daughter Elsa, of course, over the weekend. Follow him at Dogmatic67 on Twitter, DAWGMATIC 67. And you can find our great list on Spotify. Matter of fact, I saw Michael Richardson, you know Mike from the Mississippi State Alumni Association. He subscribes to our Spotify list, and he follows the top 10 list. And I have so many people, it's kind of a mixed bag. Sometimes I have people that say, hey, I'm not a music guy, fast forward through the top 10 list. Okay, I understand. My feelings aren't hurt. But I've had so many other people that said, man, I love a top 10 list because I agree with you about most things, but I also learn so much. And I've had people say, Steve, you ought to do a music podcast. Man, I don't have time. I mean, I can barely have time to do this one. It's one of the reasons I don't do the recovery podcast hardly at all anymore. I don't have time to do it. I wish I did. But now that I'm not writing another book and opening a new business, that's going to be, something I don't have to be so quite hands-on with. I've got a little more time. But no, we're not going to do a music podcast. And, I know a lot of people in music. I know I could probably get some good guests. But that said, I just don't have time for it. Maybe in the summer months, maybe I could spend a week or something and record a month of shows or something and spread them out throughout the year. I don't know. But I don't ever want to bite off more than I can chew. I'm a person that's spread thin pretty regularly. But I have so many people that say, man, I've gotten into so many bands, or I've heard songs from bands that I love that I didn't know. And so I feel like we're doing you guys a service. So thanks for your support of the top 10. And again, thanks to Roy for always putting this together for all of you. It was his idea. I was doing a top 10 list, and he's like, hey, what if we put these things together, right? What if we did these things? Wouldn't it be great? And so we did. And little did I know it would become such a big part of things. It was really just kind of filler content during COVID. And now here we are, 3.5 years later, still doing it. And still coming up with good ideas, I think. But thanks as always for your support of the top 10 list. All right, final segment of the show brought to you as always by Campus Bookmart, a Starkvillian institution. Campus Bookmart has always been there when you needed them. Neatly positioned on the backside of campus, you can swing through, pick up your new Mississippi State merch, go park, and go enjoy a great Bulldog sporting event. Very, very, very convenient. It's incredible, really is. If you can't make it to town to see their smiling faces, visit them on the World Wide Web, courtesy of Al Gore's internet, campusbookmart.net. And by being a loyal Boneyard listener, we'll give you a phrase that pays. That's BSR, which stands for Beautiful Steve Robertson. That gets you free shipping on all orders over $75. Any order less than 75 bones, absolutely incomplete. Best selection of Mississippi State merch in the known universe, for sure. A lot of people make that claim. They back it up. Miss Kathy Brown, very competitive. She's going to make sure you have the newest and best stuff. I have so many people, just yesterday, somebody's like, hey, Steve, where can I get an interlocking MSU flag? Well, I would check Campus Bookmart first. Because if anybody's going to have it, it's going to be Campus Bookmart. Campusbookmart.net, promo code BSR. All right. So, again, Friday, we're going to preview the SEC. We're going to break down Arizona. I'll probably watch the game maybe one more time, see if we can't pick up on some things that maybe that you miss yourself if you don't watch the game. Or just, I'll tell you this. They do some very exotic things with the formation in the screen game. Like you look at them and they'll bunch up and you think, okay, there's going to be this. And next thing you know, that they run like a wave of blockers out there. Before you know it, it's crazy. And again, that kind of speaks to Jaden DeLara's mobility. He's a guy that can give ground, but he's got the arm strength to deliver the pass. And they're a really, really good screen team. They'll screen you to death if you're not careful. And for a team like us that likes to blitz a lot, you got to be careful. You got to measure it up because they catch you in a blitz. They drop that screen on you. A lot less people out there to tackle. But, yeah, it's interesting. Again, I expect a very competitive game. They are an improved team over last year. And I think DeLara's really good. I do. All right, so here are some things that I want to see Mississippi State clean up this week. Not a real in-depth list, but there are some things that still kind of irritate me a little bit. I've gone back and watched the game again. And they always talk about, but the biggest gain a team makes all year is between week 1 and week 2. There's some truth to that. You got a lot of guys getting their first college action last week, and so they're a little more prepared. Now they're in a routine. They've been through mock week. They've been through week 1. All right, so now we kind of know what to expect schedule-wise. It's one of the things I love about football seasons, how regimented things are. All right, so I've asked everybody to listen, about these runs off the left side. And then, Matt Brock and Zach Arnett both said, well, it's not true the left side because we do some field stuff and we do some boundary stuff. And all that's great. All that's great. All I know is this, is that when Southeastern Louisiana ran off left tackle, we had some problems. So no matter how we were lined up, no matter the field safety was on one side or the other, no matter how you want to slice it, we gave up the more sizable gains running off left tackle. Now, so I don't know if we need to make a personnel decision, we need to make a different call, different alignment. I don't know. But this Arizona team has got much better running backs in southeastern Louisiana. That's no surprise. It's not a hot take. But you better believe if me, Mr. Novice Scribe, can pick up on the fact that Southeastern found some success off that left side, they are going to do their best to exploit that. And so we're prepared, obviously, that we're well aware of what we saw on film, but that's got to get cleaned up. You know, we were so worried here 2 years ago after South Florida surrendered like 1,000 yards to NC State, and almost all of it was running left side behind their great left tackle. And then those guys came in here and we shut that down. And you know, Zach Arnett is a cerebral guy. This guy understands tendencies and things of that nature. So we'll do some self-scouting and we'll shore that up. But that's probably the first thing I'm looking for is what are we going to do when they decide to run off left tackle? Okay? The next thing that I want to talk about is, get pressure on the quarterback. We were very vanilla last week with our schemes, and we mixed some things up at times, but we did not run the full complement. And as Zach Arnett has shared with me multiple times, there are some opponent-specific pressures that we put in each week. Now, with DeLaura, because he is so athletic, and he's not a guy that has to set his feet to heave. I mean, this is a guy, he's got a big, big arm. And so if he gets flushed, he's still able to, with a flick of the wrist sometimes, make a sizable gain through the passing game. But we've got to be very measured in what we do. I think the best course of action is, we've got to find a way to kind of set the pocket ourselves to kind of contain him in there. And I don't know if that means our alignment changes a little bit. Maybe we go with 7-tech and we want to just kind of dip and rip and get up there and then bring, the delayed linebacker blitz or whatever. I don't know how we want to do it schematically. But if we sit there and blitz up the middle over and over again, yes, it limits his reads as he has to roll to one side or another, but you give him the ability to extend plays and play a little backyard football, that could be a very dicey proposition. This kid is good enough to beat us. Everybody needs to understand that. I've read some of the predictions out there. I'm just telling you, this team, with their offensive skill, is good enough to score and beat Mississippi State. If we go out there and play haphazardly, DeLaura could have a big game. And he was a guy last year, there were a couple times he tried to do a little bit too much. I do think we got to him a little bit. And this is a hard-nosed competitor. I mean, this kid can really play. But you've got to be able to make him uncomfortable. And I think where he is the most comfortable is when he's outside and kind of has that run-pass option. And there were times last year it was wide open for him to run, but he was content to kind of just let the play develop and try to make the big play rather than sometimes just make the smart play. And if you saw Arizona again later in the year, he was a little more willing to run than he was against us. And if you saw that 53-yard zone read touchdown off the right side against UNA, you can see he is a little bit trimmer. He looks trimmer and faster, with those two things kind of go hand in hand, right? But how we attack Jayden DeLaura as a quarterback will kind of give us some preparation for what we're going to do with Jaden Daniels, with Milroe at Alabama, and in some respects Jackson Dart. I don't think Jackson could beat those guys in a foot race, but again, a very athletic quarterback. And so some things we do here will likely stay with us throughout the year, if that makes sense to you. And so learning now, how to kind of eat up space and condense the space around that quarterback is going to be big. Because how many times last year, you go back and look at the games that we lost, right? With the exception of Will Levis in Kentucky, the teams with the mobile quarterback are the ones that gave us some trouble. And again, DeLaura is more mobile this year than he was a year ago. And so we'll see how that develops. But how we attack, we had 3 sacks last week, and again, that was really kind of playing base defense. Occasionally we'd bring some heat in there just to kind of see how people were going to kind of try to block it or whatever. But we weren't blitz happy from whistle to whistle. I suspect we will be in some respects until maybe you get into a third down situation and you want to, kind of drop into coverage and maybe rush 3. But how we bring the fire with that front six against Delara will be, in many respects, maybe the story of the game. If you sit back there and let him just facilitate, he's gonna win. I'm just telling you. You've got to make him uncomfortable, get him off the spot, limit his reads a little bit. Because, again, this kid, I don't think people fully appreciate how athletic he is and how big that arm is. Let's see, punt returns. A lot of that was schematic last weekend. Southeastern was determined to kind of keep it away from, Jaden Wally. And there were other times, too, that we probably could have stepped up and made a catch or jumped on the football and saved ourselves 10, in one situation, I think 15, 16 yards. But Xavier Thomas is expected to be back this week. He is full go. He could have gone last week, but they thought, you know what, we don't need him. Let's give him another week to heal. And he wants to be on the field terribly. But the reality of it is that there was no point wasting him against FCS and risking further injury. But for those that are wondering, he just had a gash in his calf that was stitched up, and he came back a little bit too early. And so that's what it did. It's not a joint issue or something that should linger the rest of the year. But the reality of it is we need him back there. Incredible vision. And this is a guy, too, that, remember, he took the big one back against Georgia, the national champions. He had some big returns against Ole Miss as well. So Xavion's kind of coming into his own. And I won't be surprised if, we get the opportunity to run a couple, back out of the end zone. They obviously have, some guys that are capable of putting the ball in the end zone. But it'll be interesting to see, with the thicker air out here, with the same level of energy, does that ball drop short of the goal line? Because as well as I do, if you're like me, as soon as Tulu gets his hands on it, it's almost like you want to stand up because you think something big's about to happen. But the punt return game, as great as we were at times offensively, especially from about the middle of the first quarter on, we could have been better because we'd had less real estate to eat up had we done a better job returning those punts. But, of course, Xavion's back. And, again, nothing against Jaden at all, period. Punt distance for Mississippi State. We did not do a good job punting last week. And we only punted twice. And I believe, from memory serves me correct, our average was 37.5 yards a punt. Games like this, there's going to be a battle of field position for a while. You need to be able to flip the field and give your defense, the full 80, 90 yards to cover, But, yeah, it's tough to do that at 37.5 yards a punt. Now, a lot of that, too, is, Crimmins, of course, first time kicking in the United States, played in a real college football game, right? So there was some first-game jitters. Talking to Eric Mealy yesterday off the record, he goes, man, he's a guy that we can let him loose, and he's a guy that can kick it 50-plus yards. We like to be around 45. That's one of the questions that I asked him. If you've read the summary over at genespage.com or watched the video, that's specifically one of the things I asked him about. There are a lot of special teams coaches that don't want guys to kick it 55, 60 yards. Unless you're just absolutely backed up and you're just trying to, flip a field and you'll just try to kick it over somebody's head. Maybe you got wind at your back or something like that because you don't want to outkick your coverage. But basically, the target point is 45 yards. That's ideally what you'd like is to punt it 45 yards and get about 4 seconds hang time and then be able to cover that. More times than not, if that's how the ball carries, you're going to be able to get there and negate a long return. And so that's kind of what we're looking at. So we'd like to be able to get over 40, like to be able to get closer to 45. And I suspect now that he has had the experience of kicking in a college game, he'll be better for it this week. The first one, Mealy tells me he just hit it off his toe. He just mishit one, So, again, he's a freshman, right? Even though he's an older guy, he is still a freshman, experiencing all this for the very first time. He's a former Australian roots football guy, right? And so it's a different dynamic. So we expect him to be better this year. Down the field shots, we had some opportunities, and, again, Will's got to see those. But also, too, there are a couple times, you see guys running loose there and on the backside or in the middle of the field, and Will is having to flush right. So it's not really in his field of vision, right? And even with that, too, if you're rolling to the right sideline, throwing back across the middle, it's just a recipe for disaster. But we didn't take enough downfield shots, and probably some of that, which is because of what the defense was giving us. Of course, we did hit Creed on that great play. We talked about that on Monday, or so many people were like, there was a bust. No, it wasn't a bust. We created conflict in the secondary and basically made the safety pick or choose which guy he was going to cover. He took the underneath guy. We went over the top. But I would like to see us, especially early in this ball game, to be able to come out while everybody's jacked up and everything else and really kind of punch them in the mouth. And they do have some concerns at safety. Of course, we talked about, Gunnar Maldonado will miss the first half of this ball game. To hear their people talk, they say he's a guy that's not a great tackler, but he's starting for a reason, right? In addition to that, they've got a couple other guys, so we'll get a report on that, hopefully from Jason Shearer before we get together on Friday, kind of what's going on with them. I know Stooks, they're a very talented star, plays the star position, is in concussion protocol. So will he even make the trip? I don't know. I don't know if I was getting over a concussion, getting on an airplane, flying across the country. Ugh, it sounds brutal. Wish him the best. Absolutely do. But so we'll have a full update as best we can gather as we get into Friday. But, with 3 defensive starters somewhat questionable and one certainly out for a half, you start thinking, okay, we need to get going earlier than we did last week. And I think the best way to do that, of course, is when you've got the speed that we have at wide receiver, you've got to put yourself in some matchups that are advantageous where you get Tulu or Xavion in a one-on-one situation, or Creed for that matter. And so you've got to be able to utilize that speed. And again, that's a secondary that, by their own admission, they're having some issues at safety. On top of that, now you're missing the starting safety. You've got to be able to exploit that. You have to be able to exploit that. I think interior running is going to be a real chore for us. Watching them, and I guess it's Northern Arizona. I get it. Their offensive linemen, look a lot like our walk-ons, right? But there is some real beef in the middle of this Arizona defense. I mean, they have done a really good job working the portal. Did they get stars? I don't think so. But they got some really good players that appear to be an upgrade over some of the guys they had last year. Again, you go get a guy from UCLA, Michigan, and Georgia. Those kids are there for a reason, right? It's not like they went and pillaged the roster at Arizona Western. They went out and got Power 5 players. And, and Jed Fish is a guy, obviously, with an NFL background that kind of knows what he's looking for. So I think the interior runs, and we didn't get a ton of interior runs. We didn't run a lot on the interior. We ran mostly kind of work the edges. And so I think you'll see a lot more of that because the best way to make those wide-body defensive tackles be a non-factor is you don't run right at them. You make them get out and chase you. You make them run laterally, and then some things open up later in the ball game. The number one way to wear people out is to make them chase you, right? That's playground football, right? I mean, you learn that as a kid. You run and run and run and run, and you make them chase you, and you get them tired out, and then you win, right? And so Arizona's going to do a little bit of that too on offense, because DeLaura gets the ball out on the perimeter so quickly, and also too that quick release. And again, it's kind of freakish, to be honest with you. When you see it yourself, you'll see he has a big arm, but he holds the ball high mechanically. It just kind of fires off his hand really, really, really well. I think you're going to be excited when you see him play somebody else, to be honest with you. And I think you're going to look back again too, especially if State's able to win this ball game, and say, you know what, hey, that was a very important win for us. Not just because of the fact that, hey, it makes you 2-0. I think this Arizona team, again, I think it's going to be tough to get to a bowl game. But they obviously have the possibility and probability of upsetting somebody. And I'm sure in their minds they're thinking, hey, if we're going to be bowl eligible, we can beat these guys here. That certainly makes it that much easier, right? But I think you're going to look back at the end of the year, and Arizona is a team that I think is going to be a lot more competitive than maybe some people expected, whether they win a lot of games or not. With the offense that they have, they're going to be able to score on just about anybody, provided they stay healthy. So we'll see how that progresses. Again, full preview of Arizona on Friday. Now, reminder too, real quickly for those of you that keep up with such things, there's some fluctuation with some of the SEC lines. So we're going to run through that real quick here before we get out of here. Vandy and Wake. That's one you look at. It's been pretty consistent, but kind of a consensus. -10 for Wake Forest. So they're expecting Wake to win by a couple scores here. I tend to agree there, but I don't think there are a lot of people that are going to be just all fired up for that ball game. The Ball State-Georgia thing, a lot of times there's not these it's tough to set a line on these games. 42, minus 42 for Georgia. That's a lot of points, even against a MAC team. And Kirby doesn't have, like, the reputation of just blowing people out and embarrassing people. And you say, Steve, you remember what he did in the national championship game? Yes, I do. But I'm talking about these inferior opponents. It's one thing when you get your foot on the throat of a team, when you're competing for a national championship, than when there's somebody that's there to get a check, right? But if you look historically, even like last year against Samford, they could have embarrassed Samford. They didn't do it. Georgia Tech, I jumped the gun here on that. Georgia Tech is a no-line game against South Carolina State. It has nothing to do with us. There is not a lot of action with Kentucky and Eastern Kentucky. There are some early lines out there where Kentucky is favored by 31 against the Colonels. Eastern Kentucky has played pretty good brand of baseball at times, but they're not playing baseball this weekend. We'll see. One of the more intriguing games of the weekend, of course, A&M and Miami. The Aggies are road favorite. It's kind of fluctuated between 4.5. And I think that's really kind of a vote of confidence against Miami more so than for A&M. I just think A&M's got too much talent on defense. But if they lose this ball game, man, some narratives are going to be crushed. The Ole Miss line with Tulane, I know a lot of people, and I've tried to buy into this, I just can't. I just think Ole Miss is too good for Tulane. If Tulane can make this a game and keep it to the fourth quarter, anything could happen. Because, Ole Miss was so bad last year in the fourth quarter. They kind of come out with that blitzkrieg type stuff in the first quarter, and they're running tempo, and it's all scripted out, and they just attack you, and then they just try to hold on. So if they can make it a game to the fourth quarter, Tulane's got a chance. I just don't think they can. Ole Miss is only favored by 7. I think Ole Miss wins this game with some room to spare. I think they'll cover without a lot of trepidation. Kent State and Arkansas, that'll be a bloodbath. Arkansas is favored by 38. I don't know if they even got to throw a pass. KJ had a big game last week throwing the football, but there is no line on Tennessee and Austin Peay, and nor should there be, right? That's going to be an absolute bloodletting in that ball game for sure. A little bit deeper down in our numbers here, Middle Tennessee and Missouri. 20.5 is the spread. Missouri didn't exactly set the woods on fire last week offensively against a very pedestrian South Dakota team. And I'll give you a little preview. I picked Middle Tennessee State to cover. I got Missouri winning, but I got MTSU covering. We'll see. We'll see how it breaks out. I'd say another game that kind of a regional game I think will be interesting is Memphis and Arkansas State. I know Memphis is favored by 3 touchdowns or more, but we'll see. Arkansas State, what are they going to do up there? But I won't be surprised if that ends up being a ball game. Got nothing to do with us, but Alabama, a touchdown favorite over Texas. I don't think this game is going to be quite as competitive as people suggest. I don't. Maybe you do. The Arizona-Mississippi State line, the initial reports were not completely accurate, right? And that's nobody's fault. You see them pop up and you tweet them out. But the spread right now is 9 for Mississippi State. 9. And it's been one of those deals, too, where, I've seen it go, it was double digits, and then it was 7, then it was back to 8, and it looks like it's going to settle here unless there's a change tomorrow, but -9. So, again, that's across the board. Pretty much people expecting us to win this ball game by a touchdown or more. No line on Florida and McNeese State, nor should there be. No line on LSU and Grambling State, nor should they be. Did you notice the first time ever that LSU and Grambling have played? Ever. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It doesn't. Maybe you see it differently. Our friends at Southern Miss are going to be in Tallahassee. They're also a 31-point road dog. After what you saw from Florida State on Sunday, are you eager to watch that ball game? I don't know. You going to DVR it? Auburn and California. Auburn, a near touchdown favorite on the road at Cal. Cal had a pretty good weekend last weekend, too. So Auburn and Hugh Freeze, obviously, I expect an offensive shootout here, but that's kind of where the crow flies right now. And so again, on Friday, we'll get a little more in depth with our discussion about those games, and we'll make some formal picks. And again, we'll have a lot more to talk about. And I've pretty much laid out the show for you on Friday. I think it'll be exciting. And again, you and I don't play in games. And I've read, a lot of people said, oh, well, Mississippi State fans shouldn't look ahead. Guys, until we start calling plays and making plays, it doesn't matter what we do or think, But the one thing we can do to help aid in the success of our team is be a part of the Bulldog Initiative. And it was a big announcement earlier today. Over the course of the last few days, we've got donations and pledges that equal $1.3 million just in the last few days. So, and you have seen as of late that the university has truly embraced the efforts of Charlie Winfield at the Bulldog Initiative. Zach Arnett makes it a point to speak about it all the time. Zach Selman, of course, did a little video. We did Rock Vegas last year. Just not going to be able to pull it off this year. Just got too much going on. I apologize. And that's just a drop in the bucket in many respects. We raised, $27,000. But, now we're getting, 6 and 7 figure type deals. And so I encourage you, don't let it go to somebody else. And listen, I get it. I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about NIL, but the Bulldog Initiative is an important part of the Mississippi State experience. And I wish you would consider being a part of that, whether it's a one-time donation or perhaps a monthly draft. You can just go to Bulldog Initiative. Just Google Bulldog Initiative, and everything you need to know is right there. I can tell you that these are equitable and ethical people, and the fact that your university is partnering with them says a lot about their endorsement of Charlie Winfield's efforts. There's a lot of people out there that they're doing a lot of things, saying a lot of things. I can tell you from working directly with Charlie on a couple projects, I can assure you, Charlie Winfield is doing everything he can legally to help Mississippi State be competitive. Somebody needed to take charge of this. We had a couple of little upstarts that didn't pan out, but this has been something that's obviously run by an attorney that understands the ramifications on multiple fronts. And so I haven't asked this for a while, but I hope that you'll consider donating to the Bulldog Initiative and being a part of this. And you'll notice on their website, we're listed at genespage.com as a sponsor of the Bulldog Initiative, and that's by design. We are going to support Charlie Winfield and the Bulldog Initiative. And some people say, Steve, I hate NIL. I do too, in its current format. I do. As we've discussed on the show before, what we have is not what they rolled out to us. They told us, hey, you can buy their jersey and they'll get a few bucks, or they can appear in a commercial and not jeopardize their eligibility. And we're like, okay, cool, that makes sense, right? Yeah, that's great. Let's forget good for the kids. That's not what we have now, though. So until they take some corrective action and put some more stiff guardrails around this thing, we got to just kind of keep treading water, right? But the fact that your coaches are behind this and your people that you entrust so much of your emotional energy into are telling you, hey, this, if you want to help us, this is where we need help. And some things have been restructured. And I encourage you to visit Bulldog Initiative. Just pull it up and put it in your browser on Google and go check out. And there's going to be some offerings soon where you can buy some swag. And so there are a lot of people that that's one of the reasons we did Rock Vegas, right? There are some people you say, hey, give me $50 for Bulldog Initiative. And they're like, what? Well, so I tell you what, I'll sell you a T-shirt and I'll eat the expense on it, right? I'll just buy the shirt and I'll sell it to you, and then I'll give the money to Bulldog Initiative. Or we'll bring a rock concert to Starkville, and I won't make a dime off of it. Matter of fact, I'll lose money on it. And we'll take all the ticket sales and we'll give it to Bulldog Initiative. So you get to come see the show and then also support Bulldog Initiative. And that's kind of the way this thing works too. There's going to be some swag, things that you can purchase that you get a little something for your contribution. And there are a lot of people out there that are like, Steve, I'd love to be more involved, but I can't financially do it. So instead of you going and buying another MSU shirt, maybe buy a Bulldog Initiative shirt, and in turn you're helping the Bulldogs at a greater percentage, right? So once they do that, once we have a big release here in a few days, I'll share that information with you because we want to support Charlie Winfield and Bulldog Initiative and everything we do. Many of you want to support me, and I'm so incredibly pleased by that, and thank you so much for that. Go to whenthebottomfalls.com. I'm told we're getting orders in every day, pre-orders. It is going to be October on a release date. Just so you guys know, I told you late September, early October. It's not going to be here early September unless something changes like in the next few days. But so we're preparing you now for October. I apologize for that. It's kind of out of my hands. But whenthebottomfalls.com, and of course that's basically my memoirs, basically about a life and of living in recovery for 32 years, kind of how I got there, what happened, and how I've been able to maintain sobriety ever since. But it's more than that too. There's a love story involved. There's a lot of things, just kind of about growing up in South Mississippi. And probably some things that some people in my family aren't going to like that I shared, and that's okay too. They shouldn't have done them. But the reality of it is it's not some tell-all book that where I'm settling scores. It's basically me just kind of being honest about who I was and who I am today. But while you're there, you can pick up some sports books. You can get Flim Flam, Stark Villains, Alpha Dogs, and Dogpile. Every Bulldog fan needs Dogpile. Every single one. Whether you read or not, you need that book because someday there's going to be Mississippi State won a national championship. Yep, here we go. There's a book all about it, right? It was incredible. And so be a part of that. And if you're looking for Stark Villains gear, go to starkvillains.com. T-shirts, hoodies, everything. I've made the joke, too, we may do thongs. There's no way we can get Stark Villains on a thong, right? So don't look for those. I'm sure I could find some company that would probably find a way to do it, but we're not doing that. Not that we're anti-thong. We're very pro-thong. We're just not going to put a Stark Villains logo on it. But go by and check it out. And again, if you're not a member of our merry band of maroon misfits over at genespage.com, but come be a part of that. The Mississippi State affiliate for 247 Sports. Come and join us and join in part of the discussion. We did 16 stories on Saturday, and I believe 10 on Sunday. So 26 stories about football kind of carry over from the weekend. So nobody's giving you better coverage of the Bulldogs than we are. You can say, but Steve, I just want to know what happened in the game. Okay, maybe a newspaper is for you. We write that story too, but we also give you a player feature on Will Rogers and Nathan Pickering and Buki Watson and Creed Whitmore. So we're going to give you more in-depth coverage. If you just want the facts, then read the university release. If you want to know what happens behind the scenes and get the players' comments of the big plays as they happened, then you need to be a member at genespage.com. We make a ton of stuff free, but a lot of stuff too is VIP, so you need to be a subscriber to be a part of all that. But listen, guys, love you guys so much. Reminder too, if you are considering hurting yourself or others, dial 988 on your phone. It's a free call. Help is available. We want you on this side of the grass with us when Mississippi State wins its next national championship, right? And there's enough hatred in the world, and maybe if you're feeling that in your heart, perhaps we need to take some corrective action, right? I don't want you to live that way, and you don't either. 988, it's a free call on your cell phone. That's going to do it for today. So until next time, let's all live our lives in a way we make more friends than enemies, and people can see a difference in the way we live.